and why that way could lead to destruction. And of course, Jimmy and Dash were going to be just, Jimmy Part 2 and Jimmy Part 2 Sub 1, or Jimmy 2 and Jimmy 2 Prime, or whatever, until I came up with the whole relationship and what was the difference between them. And that was that, Jimmy was just absolutely hell-bent on being James. He was going to grow up to be just like his grandfather. And he was going to serve the king, and Dash was the guy who, he realized that his responsibilities were a lot less well-defined in terms of the structure of the society he lived in, and a lot more about relationships. And his feeling of the need to get involved with the people of the girl he fell in love with, and take care of her people, which were the mockers, and the scum of the society, and how that would launch them on two entirely different courses. I played with the idea of doing a book just about that relationship, and I realized that it didn't fit the timeline, and I didn't have enough of a story to sustain a novel. So I kind of let it go, and I plant stuff in the backstories where people reflect back on that. I also, Dashiell's son, Dasher, is completely not talked about. There's only a couple of references in this book and the one before about how, Jim Dasher had an uncle that he was named after. He was named after his father and his grandfather, and named after his great uncle. His uncle. And that's how he's Jim Dasher Jameson. Or James Dasher Jameson. So, I liked that book, The Shards of a Broken Crown, because it really got into some pretty, to me, significant human experience with, the aftermath. In fact, the book was almost called Aftermath, but by that time I had gotten into, the thing of the thing, and the thing of the thing, and the thing, and, so it was, Shadow of a Dark Queen, Rise of a Merchant Prince, Rage of a Demon King, Aftermath. No, that just, it wasn't resonant, it just, so Shards of a Broken Crown. And the deal I had with my editor was that, she didn't like the title very much, but she said, well, if you can work it into the narrative. And so I actually had the scene where Pug tells Patrick, pick up the shards of your broken crown and rule your kingdom. And she went, hey, very well done, I like that. Never give a writer a challenge. He'll warp an entire narrative to win a bet. Okay, so how are we wrapping up the whole thing? Yeah, no, and then the world went boom at the end. When I began, I really had no concept I was going to write 30 novels, which I do believe qualifies me as the author of the world's longest trilogy. Pretty sure I got the record right now. I can't think of anybody else who's done 30 of a continuing narrative. I'm a lightweight compared to guys like Louis L'Amour, and nobody mentioned Isaac Asimov. The guy had to be taking speed. Every time I saw Isaac, he was pretty affable, but I swear he had to have an evil twin locked in a room, chained to a typewriter. He had this little Olivetti he got that he could put. It was the world's first laptop, because it was a little Olivetti typewriter, and he had somebody rig him a roll of paper. And two other guys did the same thing, Mike Resnick and Ron Hubbard, only they didn't have the little Olivetti, they had regular standards, which was you got a roll of 8.5-inch wide paper that wasn't pre-cut, and you just put that sucker in there, and you got to the point where you could know 25 lines, double return, 25 lines, double return page number, and then at the end of the night you just start cutting pages off, and then you put them together and send them off. That way you never have to stop and put new paper in. But I remember Isaac pulling up in front of a PhilCon, the only PhilCon I went to, and as one of the 3 guests of honor. And they opened the door, and there he was with a little board on his lap, because Isaac hated to fly. He absolutely would not fly. And so he took a limo down from New York to Philly, and he was sitting in the back with his wife Janet, and he was just typing away madly. Oh, we're here? Okay. Yeah, and the other memorable thing about PhilCon that year was that some genius decided that in the big hall they were going to have the guest of honor speeches, and in the next big hall they were going to have a panel called David Gerrold Tells You All You Want to Know About Star Trek The Next Generation.
Jeez.
The con organizers were dragging every volunteer out of whatever they're doing and saying, go sit in the big hall. but I want to see the Star Trek. Go sit in the big hall. You know, there must have been like 30 people. You know, it was just one of those wonderful things. By the way, it's one of the reasons I don't do conventions anymore. I can't take the aggravation. That's why I have kids. Okay, well, that was my half hour. So, a couple more things, and then we'll get to the Q&A part. When you start dialing down at the end, you know, there are things that you put in earlier books where you're going, oh, hell, I forgot about that. You know, and so, you know, I'm going to beg your indulgence. If you're the kind of person who finds that one continuity error where you go, you know, hey, in Silverthorn, you said this. Please remember that I wrote the damn thing 29 years ago, and that if I forgot what color socks the guy was wearing, you know, spare me. And the other thing is that I hope you like it, because I'm going to do everything I said I'm going to do. It's going to be real nasty. A lot of people that you really like a lot are going away. A couple of them already have. And at the same time, I'm really trying to find a sense of triumph in all this and pull out a sense of there's a reason all this crazy stuff went on. So now we go to the part that I like to call either you ask questions or it really gets